This is WPSL Port St. Lucie, the talk of the Treasure Coast.
The views expressed on the following program are not necessarily those of WPSL. However, we are the ones that encourage you to like and share them with your friends and neighbors on social media and your friends and neighbors, because Rudy Howard, independent insurance agent Rudy Howard, and Martin County Roofing now present at this time the African American Scene with your host, the one and only Rudy Howard.
Good evening, good evening, good evening. Always glad to be with you here on a Wednesday night. Wow, I gotta tell you, I hope that you have been looking at the hearings that they've had on TV. They have been illuminating and thought-provoking. I don't care if you're a Democrat or Republican, if you looked at those hearings thus far, it has had to open your mind up to some thoughts. One of the things that, as I was looking at those hearings, that really disturbed me is it appears we are headed down the road of fascism. There's some that are going to probably kick the radio for me saying that. But our behavior speaks directly to a fascist mode of behavior. And I think that you really have to give some thought to where we are. The opening to fascist conduct is only there when there is nothing working and we have a difficult economic climate. One of the things that is the brilliant aspect of our system is the system was designed that the person with the best ideas would prevail in our political environment. What has stopped that from working as it's supposed to is the Electoral College. The Electoral College is a serious problem in the democratic process. When you think about it, every election from elementary school to high school to college to local elections are majority rules, except when it comes for president. When it comes to president, the Electoral College is the presiding factor. And we've had presidents twice in my lifetime that did not win the popular vote and became president. One was George W. Bush, and the second was Donald Trump. Donald Trump did not win the popular vote, but he became president because of the Electoral College. I don't know that our system was designed to work that way. Now, what I will tell you is, I talked about this once before, but let me talk about it again. The Electoral College, at the time the voting process was being created, actually made some sense. Now, let me tell you why it made sense back then. The idea was to have people that would be educated in the process and the issues of the day. And if you want to call in, that number is 340-1590. That's 340-1590. So the Electoral College was to put key people in places so that they would be able to carry forth information that would support a educated voting process. That's no longer necessary. We had that back when there was no internet. The communication process was horribly slow. If you have doubts about the slowness of the process, we celebrated Juneteenth the other day, and we celebrated that because 2 years after the Emancipation Proclamation, people in Texas found out that they were free.
2 years. Wow.
Yeah.
Imagine what would happen to any of us who would hold our breath for 2 years.
Exactly.
That would be permanent.
Yeah.
That's a long time to have to find out some good news.
I know. That is a long time. Yes, Steve. How are you, sir?
How you doing? Good, Rudy. How are you?
Okay.
I just want to take a couple of the sections to your thought.
Okay.
One of them is that if you really want to see the problem in America, go look in the mirror. Because we're the problem. Remember what it says in that little document we wrote, We the People?
Yes, sir.
Well, we the people have been sitting on our cellulite with a beer in our hand, bitching about everything that's gone wrong, but we won't go out and get involved and vote where it counts. So America is getting exactly what it deserves. If you're not willing to fight for your freedom, then you're not going to be free. Look at any country in the world that's not free. The people were not willing to fight for their freedom. And if they were, another country like what happened in Libya or Syria. But it all boils down to the American people. The Democrats outnumber Republicans in America almost 2-1. The popular vote should be the only way you're elected. However, you got to get rid of the Electoral College by a constitutional amendment, which is never going to happen because we have corrupted the system to the point where the Supreme Court is just the stooges, and they're actually fascist in their ruling. You know, a woman's body doesn't belong to her anymore. What are they, property again? This is crazy, but it's we the people who can change it. I'm an old guy. I'm 7.5 decades old. And I remember I was in the streets back in the 60s. At that time, the government was afraid of the people. Now the people are afraid of the government.
That's very true.
So, and then the only other thing that's true is if you don't get off your cellulite, your children and your grandchildren are done. So what are you going to do about it? Are you going to sit there and sacrifice your family, or are you going to speak up?
Well, one of the things that I do on a regular basis is I make sure my kid votes. And we talk to him about the issues, and he's educated on the issues, and he votes on a regular basis, and always has. Now that, and then I'd like to think that I make my little contribution here once a week on Wednesday to the public as a whole. But you're right, people have to get out and vote.
The guy Sheldon in Vegas, the billionaire, he can give $500 million to a candidate.
Yep,
But you know what? He still only got one vote.
that's right.
Now, and if you're out there being bombarded by all this information, and if your mindset is one way, you're going to only believe that information. Now, the only way you change your mindset is if it happens to you. And this thing in Texas, this shooting now has just blown open a lot of theories that we've been working on.
Oh,
We
yes,
protect
sir.
and serve. We'll put our life on the line to save yours. Yeah, okay. But it's just brought to light the total incompetence, corruption, whatever you want to call it, of our whole system. And, I go after the city all the time on details, but I win because I do the research to find out, are they breaking the law, and is it disadvantaging the public? And if those two questions are met, then I take action. And I just nailed them on their handicap park. How would Mr. and Mrs. Taxpayer like to know in the first 6 months of this year, it cost them $333,000 to write a ticket for handicap parking?
Yeah.
And they never did tow one, and that's the first part of the law. It says you must remove the obstacle and then up to a $250 fine. They wrote 3 tickets in 6 months. And yet when I did a FOIA, they said they had a $2 million a year budget because they had 247 cops that enforce parking laws. 3 tickets in 6 months. By the way, only 55 tickets in the last 3 years. No tows, not one tow, which I'm forwarding to Washington because I'm making an ADH complaint that the city is not in compliance. And I found out they hadn't been audited since like '04, maybe '03. So it's time to audit the city again since the city hall fund. But that's what I'm talking about. Get off your cellulite. You don't have to be an expert at everything, but there's got to be something that's bugging you. This trash thing. These people don't realize it, but look at your non-valorian tax bill. Aren't the trash collections in there?
Yeah,
Or are you now paying for commercial people?
that's an issue. And there's a guy running for mayor.
You're only 10% voted.
There's a guy running for mayor that is well aware of the trash issue.
Oh yeah, I know. I don't pay any attention to politicians. I mean, you stop and think of it, Rudy. With the mayor's now package, it's $80,000 base. With her benefits, it's $100,000. She gets 6,000 car allowance and the concierge, private doctor, private clinic, and can't handle it, go to the hospital. We all pay for it. Same thing with the council. They're up to $60,000, $80,000 with benefits, and they're part-time, which gives them the excuse that if they miss a council meeting, it's because they had their full-time job they couldn't interfere with. Well, look up conflict of interest, and that's what I'm going after them now on. In our charter, it says that the council can vote themselves a raise, and the taxpayer has nothing to say about it. And they raise their pay 40 and 60%. Part-time, the average part-time in St. Lucie is $23,000. The average full-time is $35,000. And they're making 60 and 80 base, and the benefits 80 and 100 part-time. And if they miss a meeting, there's no such thing as an unexcused absence, but it says in the charter if you have 3 of those, you're off. We had a council person that missed 20% of the special meeting, 33 of the appeal, and 16 of the regular, and never had one unexcused absence. She admitted that they were for other jobs. So that's what I'm talking about. These people are being blindsided, and you don't care enough about your own future of your children and grandchildren to speak up, do some research.
Steve, I got to move on. I got another caller.
Okay.
Thank you, sir. Jay, how are you, sir?
Okay, good to talk to you, man. This is a very interesting conversation, and I'm glad you brought up about the country. But everybody's talking about gas, and they're talking about baby formula and all that, and we get ready to lose a democracy because
yes,
if we don't have to worry about the Islamic terrorism taking over this country, like the last caller was talking about outside countries. No, it's going to be from within. And that's the responsibility of the NSA and all of the FBI and all of these law enforcement agencies. And I keep hearing these FBI agents saying that they can't do anything unless they can make it as potent as it was Islamic terrorism. And they don't want to do that with domestic terrorism. For some reason, they don't want to make it as more important as Islamic terrorism. They claim that they don't, they can't. They see they can't change that law. But they had it on the books when it came to organized crime. And RICO laws, they didn't have a problem with that. They could find a way to get rid of the organized crime and all the stuff the mafia was doing. They did it, so why can't that incorporate that in with domestic terrorism, which is worse because you got people running around with these AR-15s and want to shoot up everybody that's not white, and it doesn't work. It's not going to work, and it's just not going to go unless we have a civil war in this country. And to prevent that, they just have to come up with stronger laws and make sure that we don't turn into a fascist country like like Hungary, and
Jay,
South and North Korea and all these places.
We're headed for it, Jay.
Yeah, I look at
as I was looking at the hearings, and I was listening to how some of them, like the leader of the House in Arizona. That man had tears in his eyes as he was protesting the president because he was a diehard, lifelong Republican.
Right.
But
sure
that guy is, you have to tip your hat to that guy, even if our politics are not the same. And listen, that's part of why I wanted to bring this up. Because the fascism comes in when there's a vacuum.
Good.
And the vacuum is that we, the people, can't get anything done. We're just, we can't work together. And so it leads to a place where fascism can exist because the idea is, well, I'll get it done. Here's the way I'm going to do it. We can't have
drip,
that.
Drip. Yeah, it's like drip, drip. If we just keep sitting back and, and people just, don't really see that the Democrats got to step up and stop playing games and, fooling around. They have to be nice. If you want to, they know more about what's going on than we do. They're just giving us some of the information. There's a lot more information that they have that we don't even know about. Those people that try to, were trying to take over and change the election and do all. And you got people that's still sitting up there in Congress and the Senate and the House that were part of it. Now, if I walked into a store and picked up a bottle of soda or ice cream bar and walked out, I'd be in jail in about less than 5 minutes. It's so ridiculous. What they were doing is trying to change and take over this country and put a guy that wanted to be a dictator in place, and that's what they're setting it up for. In this state, and right here in the state of Florida, right where we live, you got the governor. He wants to bring in an SS gang. He wants to, he calls it the, National Guard, but it's not the really federal national. It's going to be my state personal guards. Now we're going to take over. I work on the polls, so I got to be subject to some of these clowns coming in with AR-15s into a voting poll while I'm there trying to help, make sure that everybody has the right to vote. I got to worry about this SS troop coming in there, that because he's part of DeSantis' army to make sure that everybody, the vote goes only one way. Now, come on. What are we going to do? People just can't sit around and wring their hands and say, "Well, it's all about the gas." No, it's a lot more than just about gas,
Amen.
food, and baby food. A lot more about it.
Listen,
We have to wake up.
And listen, people should be up in arms about him creating this special force for voting. That's really, I'm telling you that if you look it up as I did, that is right there on the fascism scale of conversion, having a separate armed service to look at the polls.
Yeah.
That's ridiculous.
Yeah, he's going to pick and you know who it's going to be. It's going to be the Proud Boys, the same characters that you saw in that on that film, the picture of what happened on January the 6th. The same group. You're going to see them in there, and you're going to see them running around out here like they stormtroopers, and that's what they are. That's what they're going to be, according to our governor. That's exactly what. But nobody's, there's nobody up in arms, and that's why right now I'm out there trying to help people register to vote that are not registered, and I'm doing, my little bit and keep on doing it, and I just hope nobody tries to stop me. And that's all. I'm just praying they don't try to, stop me from doing it. But that's what's happening out here now. People got to wake up. And you're right for bringing this up, because I think people need to have more knowledge and know what's important and what really is important. I'm not saying it's not important about gas and food and all that, but we know we can get over that. But if you have somebody and they take over and they do everything they want because they're not the majority in this country, and they can see that they're not going to be the majority. So they figured it out, and they already got everything locked up. They got the Senate, and they got the Supreme Court all locked up, and they're going to vote whatever way they want these fascist people to go. That's which way the Supreme Court's going to vote. So we will see what the people want to do. Take care, man.
Okay, thank you, Jay.
Appreciate it. Yeah.
Yeah, he's right, and that is the reason why I brought it up, because what's going on now in this country is a lot more important than just the cost of gas. And I don't know if some of my conservative friends understand exactly what's taking place here. The advocacy for some of the things that have gone on, especially under Donald Trump, is just not healthy at all for America. And again, I say our system was designed so the group with the best ideas win. And if you don't have the best ideas, the idea is to have some dialogue and come up with compromises where you can. And we got Greg on line one. Yes, sir.
Hey, Rudy.
Yes, sir.
You and I have talked before.
Yeah.
This nonsense about color and racism.
About what now?
Color and racism is absolutely disgusting to me, and politics. And politics all falls into it.
Why is a discussion of racism offensive to you?
I believe, and I know I'm treading on eggshells here, so please bear with me.
No, you're not. You're free to. This is America. You're free to talk and disagree with me. It's all right.
I believe that we Americans, and all of my Americans, are Asian and black and Indian, whatever. We are being 100% deceived by our government. Remember I told you, I'm a white man. My mother and father had to travel with the Green Book because my mom was a Cherokee Indian.
Okay.
And not only does that disgust me to no end, but now it's 2022, man. Why?
And?
Are we going through the nonsense that we're going through so my black brothers and sisters can get along equally with me? What the hell's the problem? I gotta go.
Okay. He was very emotional. I understand. Boy, I get emotional too about the current state of affairs in this country. And why? He wants to know what's wrong. What is wrong is there has been a picture painted that is missing characters.
Paint by numbers with some missing numbers.
Yes. And so the picture that people have in their mind is much different than the reality. And you know, Greg, I feel you because I'm a member of the board of directors to the YMCA. And the president and CEO is Indian. She doesn't look Indian, but she's Indian. And she and I have talked, and in fact, I'm going to have her on in the next couple of weeks for a special program she's become a part of with the National Y. And she's going to talk about it for Native and Indigenous people. And I've asked her to come on again. She's been on once before, and she's agreed to come on. And so we'll get another opportunity to talk to her, Greg. And I hope that you'll call in when she's here, because she's a dynamite lady. And I'm very pleased to be working under her leadership at the Y. It's my honor to be on that board of directors. But why we gotta, instead of pushing away the picture, here's what too many people want to do. They take a look at the picture and they say, okay, if we just put this picture away and make pretend like it's fine, everything will be fine. Well, no, everything's not going to be fine like that. It's not.
I think if my picture was being manipulated, I'd pull out my old paintbrush myself.
Yes, sir, and that's exactly what protest is about. About
pulling out our
to,
own paintbrush. That's right.
That's about trying to put the picture straight. Listen, I'm going to tell you, I've said this before, and I'm going to say it again, and I'm going to keep saying it again until everybody gets it. I truly believe if everybody knew how we all play an intricate role in the development of this country, there would be peace among us. Because you wouldn't feel as though black people are just trying to get something they're not entitled to. They're deeply embedded into the fabric of this country. I mean, for us, myself, I don't know anything else. You know, they say I'm African American, but I'm Black American. I don't know anything else. I don't know a damn thing about Africa. Not one thing. I don't know of any relatives that I have that are African, although my color tells me that there's an African root back there somewhere. But I'm American.
How come we're not referring to Egyptian Americans?
Yeah.
Why do we have to be African American? Egypt is in Africa.
Sure, absolutely. Most people don't know that, but you're right.
You look at some of those old stone monuments that are there, you'll notice that some of them have been damaged in such a way so you won't know the nationality of the god that has been portrayed in the art there. Interesting.
And you want to know about why we can't get past this? Just think about what we saw last night on TV. The President of the United States called an individual a drug user and vote manipulator, and that person has to have protection, had to move out of their house by instruction of the FBI because their life was in danger. And then you wonder why we still have issues? That is just so ridiculous to do that to that lady, just like they did it to the other guys, but those guys were in leadership roles where they might be able to get some support and protection. The 2 poll workers called out by the President of the United States? Well, I'm sorry, that's just disgusting. I think that's a low level by President Trump. And I think we saw people with lots of character yesterday who stood up for the betterment of the country. So, but yes, I do think we're headed toward fascism, and I hope we don't get there. But we are doing some of the things that they say will lead to a fascist state of our political structure. And a lot of it has to do with the fact that President Trump has portrayed what they call ultranationalism. The ultranationalism is a descriptive term for when you want to have a nation where all people speak and act alike uniformly. Well, the first problem with that is we are a heterogeneous society, and that is from the word go, because we have Mexican Americans deeply within our culture, and we have indigenous Americans deeply within our culture. So those things, while there's a tendency to want to make a whitewash and make this a European American country. We're not. We never have been. There was Mexican people here before there was English people here. Just go look at California or Mexico, Arizona. So we are what we are, and what we have to learn to come together. We have to come together as a people. We cannot continue down this road of we can't get anything done because we can't agree. And I had a pretty rigorous debate with somebody who's probably listening now who can't call here anymore. And his position is that there has to be definites. It has to have a definite answer. There can be no compromise. It's either this way or that way, and all things are byproduct of the Lord. Well, I'm sorry. I'm a Christian guy, but I do not accept that theory. There are compromises that we all have to make. And I told him one day when we were having a very rigorous discussion, do you tell your wife that there's definites, that there's no compromise?
I don't think anybody who's ever been married hasn't experienced the need for compromise.
Of course. How could you be married for any length of time and not compromise? If you don't have any compromise, you ain't gonna be married very
If you
long.
got married, period, you compromised something
Oh yeah,
just to get married, yeah.
absolutely. So that statement of no compromise is just totally ridiculous. Again, we're only down to the last few minutes, but 340-1590. That's 340-1590. So, yes. But what we have to do is I'd like to think about, and I've probably said this to you before too. There's something to be learned from a very simple thing. Ruth Bader Ginsburg and Antonin Scalia were best friends. Can you imagine that? They were best friends.
It's nice to know somebody can still be friends and involved in politics.
Yes.
Different
And
politics.
They were on opposite ends of the spectrum, but they went to the opera together. They went on camping trips together. So how did they do it?
That's the way we all need to do it. We got to find that out.
Exactly. That is an equation worthy of discovery.
Somebody once asked me, they said, why are there some people out there that are on the radio or on television or something? And then there's folks, he was referring to himself, and then there's folks like me, he'd say that we'll have to worry about gas all the time. And my answer to him was, well, it takes all kinds of people to get everything done all the time. And everybody has some special gift or skill that we could do something. But looking for the answer is where you got to start. You got to look.
Yes.
It's not seek and ye shall find. Seek until you find.
There you go. And listen, I bring that up because when I first read about that, I think it was in Parade magazine probably a dozen years ago. And I was like flabbergasted. I went, they're best friends? And then they talked about how they they both had a love of the opera, so they both went to the opera together, and they sometimes went on camping trips together. And I'm thinking to myself, Well, you can't get more opposite than Ruth Bader Ginsburg and Antonin Scalia.
Wow.
So somewhere in there, I highly suspect the way that can happen is a healthy respect for the person. While you have different thoughts of ideas, but a healthy respect for the person. I recently did a new Medicare application with a gentleman who had listened to me on the radio and said that he doesn't agree with me very often at all.
Ah.
Yeah.
He doesn't agree very often at all, but he does agree sometimes, doesn't he?
Yeah, so I wrote his Medicare policies, which was pretty cool. But there's an example. He is a different political persuasion than me, but somehow he was okay with having me do his Medicare, which is good. I appreciate that, being able to provide him the medical coverage that he needed for himself. So that's a good thing. But if we go back and we look, even the famous liberal from Massachusetts, Lord, I can see his face. I can't call his name, but him and Ronald Reagan were good friends. They frequently went out together. So it's entirely possible. And we got Steve. Yes, Steve.
I was listening to this young man tonight. I assume he's young. Well, no, I don't know, but he sounded like he was young. This young man who was on your show just now, he was at the edge of tears. Like I heard it.
Yes.
And it just tugged at me. And as soon as I heard that, and I walked away from that and went outside to do some more yard work while I'm listening to you in the garage, I thought of something that really came to my mind. I don't know how valid it is, but here's what came to my mind. We have people who think in a Democratic mode. We have people who think in a Republican mode. We got good, we got bad, we got right, we got wrong, we got extremists on both sides. You name it all. We've all got it all. But it just seems to me as if, I don't know, maybe we're missing something here. Maybe there's a third element that doesn't play to one side or to the other, but basically plays to both sides to create this incredible schism that we have in this country that I'm 73 years old. I have never seen a division of beliefs, a division of people the way I see it now. I've never seen this ever before, and it increases at an exponential rate.
Agreed.
I'm wondering, do we need to look at that? Do we need to look at that instead of looking at one side versus the other? Do we need to be together looking at what is making us like this? Does this make sense, what I'm saying?
Oh, absolutely. But I think there's a couple things that I think has happened. I think some of the common decency element, politeness that most people grew up with, that's in our age group.
On both sides, and on both sides, definitely.
Yeah, I agree with you, and I would say that there's an air of politeness that's missing that used to exist in our age group. And there is an unwillingness to bend with your particular position. And there's also, this is what I really find frustrating, a absence of accepting truth. Truth no longer is a guiding element in a discussion.
It's not on the agenda. It's not.
I happen to agree with that. I'm not kidding. Because I see it on both sides. I'm not. Listen, you guys know that I'm a conservative guy, but I'm always open to listen to the other side. I'm always a believer of let's start by negotiating to yes. In other words, let's first find out what we have in common with each other, and let's work from there, and let's give and take on how we deal with the things that we don't agree with. But I don't see this happening anymore. It's gone. It's totally gone.
Well, Steve, one of the things that makes it difficult is if there is no truth, how do you come to an agreement? Because I negotiated, I started out my career negotiating cases for claims, big and small. And one of the first elements.
Resources.
So,
I was in human resources, union versus administration. I understand that.
So the first element is, for me, always was, can we agree on the facts? Once you agree on the facts, then you try to come to a decision about the money. But if you can agree on the facts, you've gotten to first base. So that's I think that's part of it, Steve. So I guess Steve's gone.
You know, he maybe something came up or whatever, but
Yeah.
he was on to something there. When
Yeah.
when truth is no longer even a factor to reckon, you know, I mean, truth should be considered. Of course, perhaps your truth is better than my truth, or my truth is better than your truth. Whose truth is better than whose truth? Isn't truth the same thing to everybody?
I would think, like, you know, for me, this issue of voter fraud, that is just, I mean, everything has proved there was no voter fraud. Yet there's people that still believe it. There are people that still believe there was voter fraud, even though there has been all kinds of people stating there was no voter fraud. How can you still say there's voter fraud when everybody that's investigators tell you there's no voter fraud?
There's a perception that telling a lie over and over again creates truth,
Yes.
and that's a lie itself.
Yes. Yes.
Perhaps, you know what, I hate to say this is not the right thing to say, but you want to talk a little truth? There's a lot of mental illness going on right now amongst the inhabitants of this planet. There's a lot of mental illness going on, blatant mental illness. People say, well, I'm not guilty because of insanity. Yeah, that's it. But,
Yeah.
you know, unfortunately, there's a lot of situations going out there. Our research needs to continue. Research needs to continue about when it comes to health. It should be the number one priority, you know, when it comes to health.
But listen, here's how this gets twisted. You have somebody like Rudy Giuliani. He holds a press conference, and he says all of these things that took place in the voting process, okay?
Mm-hmm.
Now, when it comes time to go to court, he doesn't say those things in the courtroom, but you have to know enough about legal system to know that he's not doing that. Because if he did that, what would happen to him is just what did happen to him. His law license got suspended. When you go in and you make a presentation to a judge, you have got to have some facts. If you go in and you make a presentation about a case with no facts, you are subjecting yourself to potential sanctions, license suspension, etc. So a lot of times, him and Sidney Powell would make all these spurious allegations, and then when they go to court, they don't bring those allegations forward, but those allegations have been fed to the mind of the public. So in the public's mind, those are legitimate allegations, but they're not. Because it's one thing to say them in a press conference, it's another thing to say them in the court. That's why they've lost 60 court cases.
There are penalties for perjury.
Yes.
That's what it's called, perjury.
So they don't say them in the courtroom. But they've already done their damage by saying them in a press conference, which leads people to believe that there's an element of truth to those statements. And they don't have the advantage of knowing that those things were not said before the court. But I am telling you that is exactly what happened. That's why they lost 60 cases, because they would say what they said, but when they get to the court, they can't prove it, or they won't say that specific thing in the courtroom, for they know that'll be a violation of their law license, and they could get them in trouble. So, but nevertheless, the damage is already done by virtue of the press conference. So, but listen, we're going to have another hearing tomorrow. There will be more revelations that'll come forward. I pray that each and every one of you, as you're looking at this, forget about party and think about country, and understand what this means to us as a country and how you can play your part. I'd like to thank you so much for listening to the African American Scene. God bless and be safe, and I will see you next Wednesday right here for the African American Scene.
The African American Scene with Rudy Howard is presented each week by independent insurance agent Rudy Howard and Martin County Roofing here on WPSL, Port St. Lucie.
Hi, this is Rudy Howard, your independent insurance agent. I now specialize in Medicare, health insurance, and small group insurance. That number is 475-8856. Same great service, more flexible hours. Just give me a call, 475-8856.
At Martin County Roofing, we build trust with quality work. I'm Derek Alcius, owner of Martin County Roofing with more than 20 years experience in the roofing and construction industry. Whether you need a repair, restoration, or a new roof, both residential or commercial, we offer a seamless client experience, and we serve the entire Treasure Coast. Fully licensed and insured, we specialize in tile, metal, shingle, or flat roof. Contact us today for a free estimate at martincountyroofing.com.